Okay, geometry students, in this video we will be studying 4 different pairs of angles that are formed when a transversal intersects 2 or more lines. Now you might say right off the bat, well, Mr. Earhart, I don't know what a transversal is. Well, we're gonna learn that in just a couple minutes here, and so don't worry about that. But what we're going to mainly focus on today are the 4 different pairs of angles that are formed when a transversal intersects 2 or more lines. Okay. With that in mind, go ahead and copy down your heading for today, if you would, please. Your heading is angles formed by transversals. Angles formed by transversals, lesson 3.5, and include today's date. Okay? Angles that are formed by transversals, lesson 3.5, and include today's date. Okay? Again, angles formed by transversals. Now, first, we need to start off by looking at the definition of what a transversal is, okay? So let's go ahead and copy this in your notes, if you would, please. You're responsible for this definition, and you need to know this for upcoming tests and quizzes, okay? So copy this down. A transversal is simply a line. That's all that it is, students. A transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more coplanar lines at different points, okay? So I'll wait just a second while you copy that down, then I'll give you a picture of this or a diagram of it. But a transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more coplanar lines. And this is real important here, students, at different points, okay? Now let me go ahead and give you a picture of this, student, so you can see what a transversal is. And I would encourage you to write this down in your notes if I were you, okay? All right, let's say we have a line here, and we'll call this line L. And that's not a very good L, is it? Let's try that again. Line L. And then we have a line like this, and we'll call this line M. And then we have a line like this. Well, no, we're going to call this line A. Students, notice, please copy this in your notes. I think it'd be really wise to have a picture of what a transversal is, okay? In this diagram here, in this picture here, line A is a transversal because it is a line that is intersecting 2 or more lines at different points. For example, if you had 2 lines like this, and the third line intersected both lines here at the same point, that's not going to be a transversal, okay? A transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more other lines at different points. So this transversal A intersects line L here. It intersects line M here. So A is a transversal because it intersects 2 or more lines at different points, okay? You really need to know what a transversal is, okay? If not, you're going to be confused later as to which line is a transversal and which line is not the transversal, okay? L is not a transversal because L is only intersecting one line. M is not a transversal because M is only intersecting one line. A transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more coplanar lines, okay? Now understand, this is so important. You don't have to write this down, but just listen to me. Understand that when a transversal intersects 2 or more lines, there are some angles that are formed that have special names, and these angles come in pairs of 2. And there are 4 sets of these pairs of 2 angles. There are 4 sets of these, and you must, students, extremely well. I cannot tell you how important it is that you know these 4 sets of angles, because the next video we're going to use, that we're going to look at, you're going to learn postulates, 1 postulate and 4 theorems based on these pairs of angles. So you need to know their names, and you need to be able to recognize these pairs of angles. That's what I want to show you in this very short video. I want to show you these pairs of angles and what they look like in a diagram, okay? So let's continue on. If I can get this thing to work, there we go. I'm not going to give you definitions to learn, like word definitions, but instead I'm going to give you a diagram and show you what these 4 pairs of angles look like. So without any more hesitation, let's go ahead and copy this in your notes, please. Now I'm going to go ahead and just sit here and be quiet for a couple seconds here. I want you to write the words corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and consecutive interior angles. Then I want you to draw this diagram. Let's go ahead and call this line A. We'll call this line L, and we'll call this line M, okay? And then be sure and number these angles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Students, listen, when you number these angles, make sure you number them exactly like I have, or your notes up here are not going to match the angles down here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and be quiet here, if that's possible for me to be quiet, and I want you to write down the words corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, consecutive interior angles, and then draw this diagram in your notes. Okay, give you a couple more seconds, and remember, students, if you're not done, as I go ahead and write things up here, you'll be able to continue to copy this diagram in your notes. Okay, so it's not going to be a problem there. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at corresponding angles. Remember, students, please don't forget this. All of these different types of angles here come in pairs of 2. So let's start off with corresponding angles. It's very important in your notes that you make note line A is the transversal and line L and M are the 2 lines that are being intersected. It's so important that you see that. Okay, corresponding angles. Now, these are angles that are on the same side of the transversal, and they're either both above these 2 lines or below them. What do I mean? Well, let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and use black, and we're going to color code these, okay? 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. Notice they're both to the left of the transversal. Do you see that? And they're both on top or above the 2 lines. Angle 1 is above line L, and angle 5 is above line L. So, corresponding angles would be 1 and 5. Okay? Then put a semicolon. Angles 2 and 6 would be corresponding angles because they're both to the right of the transversal and they're both above the 2 lines, like this. So angles 2 and 6 would be corresponding angles. Now, angles 3 and 7 would be corresponding angles. So angles 2 and 6, angles 1 and 7. Remember, they come in pairs of 2. I mean 3 and 7, and I apologize, students, sorry about that. 3 and 7. Now notice angle 3 and angle 7 are both below the 2 lines that are being intersected, and they're both to the left of the transversal. Okay? Another, let me go ahead and hold on 1 second, students, sorry about this. So what did I have here? I had 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 7, and there's one other set. Go ahead and see if you can figure it out on your own. We said 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 7. Go ahead and see if you can figure out the other 2 angles that would go here. They're corresponding, okay? You should have written this, 4 and 8, because they're both to the right of the transversal and they're both below the 2 lines that are being intersected, okay? So instead of giving you word definitions for these, I really don't think that would be a smart thing to do. I'm just going to give you a diagram and label these for you and tell you to really be able to find these without any hesitation or any slowness at all, okay? All right, now let's talk about alternate interior angles. First of all, let's talk about the word interior. When it says interior, it's referring to the angles that are on the inside of these 2 intersected lines. So they're referring to angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those 4 angles are called the interior. And that makes sense, doesn't it, students? They're on the inside of these 2 lines that are being intersected. So that's why we use the word interior. Now, we use the word alternating because they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Let me go ahead and show you. Angles 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles. All right, 3 and 6. So go ahead and write 3, 6. And they're called alternate interior because 3 and 6 are on the interior. They're between the two lines that are being intersected. And they're called alternate because they're on different sides of the transversal. Okay, now there's one more set of alternate interior angles. Go ahead and figure out what it is and go ahead and write it right here. You should be able to do that. Go ahead and figure the other set of alternate interior angles. And then write that here. All right, you should have written this 4 and 5. Okay, they're both on the inside, the interior. They're between the two intersected lines, and 4 and 5 are on opposite sides of the transversal. Thus, they're considered alternate interior angles. Okay, all right. Now let's talk about alternate exterior angles. You can probably figure this one out on your own just based on the last definition. First of all, the word exterior refers to the angles that are on the outside of the two intersected lines. So angles 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are what we call exterior angles. Okay, and alternate just means you're looking for angles that are on different sides of the transversal. So here's 1, it's on the left side of the transversal. Here's 8, it's on the right side of the transversal. And notice they're on the exterior, they're on the outside of the intersected lines. And so we can definitely state that angles 1 and 8 are alternate exterior angles. Now, on your own, go ahead and figure out the other set of alternate exterior angles. And that really shouldn't be too hard to do, students. Okay? All right, you should have written this. Angle 2 is on the right side of the transversal. Angle 7 is on the left side of the transversal. And they're both on the exterior, okay, on the outside of the intersected lines. 2 and 7, 2 is on the outside of the two intersected lines and 7 is on the outside. So angles 2 and 7 are what we call alternate exterior angles. Angles 2 and 7, all right? Are you seeing, students, how all of these come in pairs of 2? You really need to be able to see that, okay? Now, consecutive interior angles. First of all, let's focus on the word interior. Right away, you should remember when we looked at alternate interior angles, that's referring to these 4 angles right here, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are on the interior. Now notice instead of saying alternate interior, it's consecutive interior. And so here's what this means, okay? It simply means this. Angles 3 and 5 are what we call consecutive interior angles. Both of these angles are on the interior, and both of these angles are on the same side of the transversal. They're both on the left side. So angles 3 and 5 are consecutive interior angles. Now, on your own, go ahead and write the other pairs of angles that would go right here, okay? Your other pair of consecutive interior angles. Okay, hopefully you got this right. Should be pretty obvious. 4 and 6 are both on the interior, and they're both on the right side of the transversal, so they're considered consecutive. So angles 4 and 6 are consecutive interior angles. Students, I would not lie to you or mislead you in any way. You have to know these so well, because in the next video we're going to learn postulates and theorems about parallel lines being cut by a transversal, and you're going to learn that alternate exterior angles are congruent, alternate interior are congruent, corresponding is congruent, consecutive interior or supplementary. We're going to learn so much about each one of these sets of angles. You must be able to recognize these angles, these pairs of angles very, very, very quickly, okay? All right. Hopefully this has made sense. Contact me if you have any questions.